Ever wondered why the plague, one of history's most devastating diseases, ravaged humanity unchecked for centuries? The plague, also known as the Black Death, was an unseen enemy that swept across continents, leaving devastation in its wake. A silent assassin, it knew no boundaries, no social class, no age. It was a deadly mystery that gripped the world, a puzzle that seemed impossible to solve. In the Middle Ages, the world was a much smaller place, yet this disease managed to infiltrate every corner, every crevice. From the bustling trade routes of Asia to the cobbled streets of Europe, the plague was an unwelcome traveler, a shadow that seemed to lurk in every alley, every market square. The impact was widespread, both in terms of geography and the sheer number of lives lost. It's estimated that between 75 and 200 million people fell victim to this merciless disease. In the face of such a formidable foe, the need for a cure was desperate. People were living in fear, never knowing when the plague would strike next. The urgency was palpable, the panic tangible. In these desperate times, various attempts were made to find a cure, to unlock the secret of this deadly disease, to bring hope to a world shrouded in despair. These attempts ranged from the logical to the ludicrous, from the scientific to the supernatural. Physicians and scientists, alchemists and astrologers, all joined the race against time, the race to find a cure. Some of these attempts were grounded in medical knowledge of the time, while others were born out of superstition and fear. However, despite the best efforts of the brightest minds, a cure remained elusive. The plague continued to claim lives, to spread fear, to change the course of history. The cures that were proposed, that were tested, that were believed in, they all failed. But why? What was it about this disease that made it so hard to combat? Let's delve into the annals of history and explore some of these failed cures. As we journey back in time, we'll uncover the stories behind these attempts, the beliefs that drove them, and the lessons that were learned. So, get ready for a trip down memory lane, a journey filled with intrigue, mystery, and a touch of the macabre. As we step back into the Dark Ages, a time of fear and superstition, we find the first recorded attempts at curing the plague. Unseen assailants in the form of tiny bacteria were wreaking havoc, and humanity, in its desperate quest for survival, turned to trial and error, testing every imaginable remedy to combat the invisible enemy. During this era, medical knowledge was anything but advanced. Theories of disease spread were often steeped in mysticism and folklore rather than grounded in scientific understanding. One of the most prevalent methods used to treat the plague was bloodletting. This practice involved the release of bad blood from the body, believed to be the root cause of the illness. Leeches were commonly used, their slimy bodies clinging to the skin, feasting on the life force of the afflicted. Another method was the use of theriac. This was a concoction of multiple ingredients, including viper flesh, opium, and a plethora of herbs and spices. The recipe varied from place to place, but the central belief was that this potion could purify the body and restore health. In their desperation, people also turned to superstition and religious practices. Flagellants roamed the streets, whipping themselves as a form of penance, believing their suffering could appease the wrath of God and end the plague. Charms and amulets were also widely used, their owners hoping to ward off the deadly disease. These cures, while interesting from a historical perspective, were largely ineffective. The plague was caused by bacteria, transmitted through fleas on rats, a fact that was unknown in the Dark Ages. Without this knowledge, the attempts at treatment were merely shots in the dark. Despite their best efforts, the plague continued to decimate populations, leading to a desperate search for more effective cures. And while these attempts were ultimately unsuccessful, they laid the groundwork for future advancements in medicine, reminding us of the resilience and resourcefulness of humanity in the face of adversity. With the dawn of the Renaissance, a glimmer of hope emerged in the battle against the plague. As the world awoke from the dark nights of the Middle Ages, a period of artistic, cultural, and scientific rebirth unfolded. This era, known as the Renaissance, brought with it a renewed vigor to combat the relentless plague. The Renaissance was a time of exploration and experimentation, and this was reflected in the methods employed to combat the plague. In this period, the plague doctor, a figure shrouded in a bird-like mask and dark robes, emerged. The doctors filled their beak-shaped masks with herbs and spices, believing that the aromatic compounds would purify the air they breathed and protect them from the disease. However, despite their iconic status, these physicians were largely ineffective, their aromatic remedies doing little to halt the devastating effects of the plague. The Renaissance also saw the advent of more complex treatments. Mercury, a shiny silver liquid metal, was one such treatment. Patients were instructed to rub mercury on their bodies or even ingest it, under the belief that this would draw out the disease. Similarly, arsenic, a highly toxic substance, was used in the hope of purging the body of the plague. Yet these treatments not only failed to cure the plague, they often resulted in the death of the patient, adding another layer of tragedy to the already grim situation. There were advances in understanding the plague during the Renaissance, and it was during this time that the first theories about the disease being spread by tiny organisms came into being. However, the technology and knowledge to fully understand and combat the infection were not yet within reach. The plague remained an unconquered foe, with the failed cures of the Renaissance serving as a stark reminder of its deadly power. Despite the progress and the hopeful spirit of the Renaissance, the plague continued to cast a long, dark shadow over humanity. Its deadly power served as a reminder that the journey to understanding and defeating this unseen enemy was a long and arduous one. As we move into the modern era, the relentless pursuit of a cure for the plague finally bore fruit. The dawn of the 20th century brought with it a new age of scientific discovery, an age where the invisible enemy, the plague, would finally meet its match. After years of trial and error, the advent of antibiotics marked a turning point in the fight against this deadly disease. Antibiotics, the miracle drugs of the modern age, were nothing short of a revolution. Suddenly we had a weapon, a real effective weapon against the plague. The discovery of these powerful drugs, like streptomycin and tetracycline, brought hope where once there was only despair. With their ability to inhibit the growth of bacteria, these antibiotics became the silver bullet, the cure that the world had been searching for. But this triumph was not a stroke of luck. It was the result of years of painstaking research, of countless experiments, and of a relentless pursuit of knowledge. It was a testament to the power of scientific research, a testament to the progress we've made in understanding diseases. And the impact of this progress was profound. The plague, once the scourge of nations, was now a treatable condition. The death tolls began to dwindle, the fear began to recede, and the world began to breathe a sigh of relief. It was the triumph of science over superstition, of knowledge over fear. But while we celebrate this victory, we must also remember the journey. We must remember the trials and the errors, the false cures and the failed treatments. Because it is in these failures that we find our greatest lessons. It is in these failures that we find the drive to push forward, to seek out new knowledge, to strive for a better future. The plague, a disease that once brought humanity to its knees, was finally tamed. Not by magic or by prayer, but by the power of scientific discovery. And as we look back on this journey, as we remember the trials and celebrate the triumph, we are reminded of the power of science, of the power of persistence, of the power of hope. The plague, once a deadly mystery, was finally tamed by the power of scientific discovery. As we journey through the failed cures for the plague, what lessons can we glean from history? The labyrinth of history is laden with tales of human resilience, and our journey through the failed cures for the plague is no exception. From the absurd to the horrific, these attempts at curing the plague were, in essence, a testament to humanity's desperate struggle for survival. Let's quickly revisit the main points. In the past, the plague was a formidable adversary, a grim reaper that swept across continents without remorse. Our ancestors, armed with little understanding of the disease, resorted to a variety of remedies, from bloodletting and applying crushed emeralds to the skin, to the use of noxious concoctions and the bizarre practice of placing a live chicken next to the swollen lymph nodes. The cures were as varied as they were ineffective. But it's crucial to remember that these failed cures were not in vain. They represent the early, faltering steps of humanity's journey towards scientific understanding. The repeated failures in finding a cure for the plague underscored the need for a deeper understanding of diseases and the importance of research in combating them. The lessons from the plague have resonated through the centuries, shaping modern medicine. They have taught us the importance of scientific rigor and the need for a systematic approach to understanding and treating diseases. They've shown us that in the face of a formidable foe, we must arm ourselves with knowledge, and that failure, while frustrating, is a part of the journey towards success. Despite the tremendously high toll the plague exacted, it also spurred scientific advancements. The failures of the past have contributed to the successes of the present. In the face of adversity, humanity has proven time and again its capacity for innovation and resilience. And so, we come full circle. The story of the plague and its failed cures serves as a stark reminder of the trials humanity has faced, the lessons learned, and the victories won. It reminds us that in the face of adversity, humanity's capacity for innovation and resilience prevails.